It's, thank you all for being here again. We're going to deal with the draft report that staff has put together and a couple other things. But first, I'd like to get a discussion approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Okay. I have a motion. All right, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, so as you saw via email, staff has put out a draft report. I'd like to take some time to discuss that. Actually, Adam or Brad, you want to go into anything in that report?
No, I mean, we tried our best.
Well, we appreciate your effort. Open discussion, anybody? Yes, sir.
I have some things I want
Microphone.
some things to go over in terms of my recommendation, but what I didn't include in there was a reference to the concluding paragraph. Right now, it was my thought that we were going to come back tonight and have another vote, and that doesn't look like that's going to be possible because of several members not being here. But where the concluding paragraph just says, okay, our recommendation preliminarily is 7. It doesn't go into a rationale for why we would have come to that conclusion, because the rest of the report shows that in terms of comparing with our peers, both in and out of the state, the number should be increased. As it also notes that a majority of the work group sided with there being some increase. There's no discussion in terms of how we're going to address some of those preliminary problems. So my thought is that as far as sending out an initial report to the community, that we do not come back and include what a conclusion is, since we had already agreed we were going to take a look at another vote, and the way it's written right now would cause a lot of turmoil, and without, as I said, anything explaining how we reached the conclusion other than we took a vote. And that's not a good explanation for why we concluded what we did.
Okay, well, I have no problem with that revision or edit. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Since this was clearly a preliminary vote, I don't think we have to provide rationale in this report for why we did it. I do think we have to provide rationale when we make the final decision, take a final vote, which, again, as I pointed out at the last meeting, would occur after the 2 public meetings. So I disagree with Mr. Dorsey's conclusion there as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
I agree with that, with Eric.
Okay. I want everybody else.
I agree with Mr. Dorsey. I think we should provide more context.
Okay. 2-2. Come on.
3.
Okay.
Mr. Dorsey.
All right. Okay. Well, it seems like we have a majority. I have, and this is more of a procedural edit than I want to make sure that we are perfectly clear here that this is not a decision by this commission to do anything besides said that we are going to have another vote, right? We're all crystal about that, right? Okay, all right, so I have no problem with that edit as chair. So staff, you have your direction on that. Anything else as far as the draft report? Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
I had a concern. We were talking about timeframes, about this being on the 24 ballot, and then it would affect the election in '26. But aren't there renovations, whatever we decide, there are going to be renovations. Isn't that going to take, it says multi-year in here? I mean, so is '26 reasonable to be able to have this happen? I wanted us to think about it a bit.
For context, the last time there was a renovation, it took, Chris can correct me on this, but I think it took somewhere between 18 months and 2 years.
Okay,
And that's from, like the very start to the very end.
okay. I just wanted to bring that up just in case there was an issue.
So, okay, go ahead, Mr. Dorsey.
I sent you all out some items that I wanted to see if we could address.
Did you need this? I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I'm getting ready to talk about that, and I wanted you to have a copy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay. One item was in terms of on page 2. Right now, in terms of we've had, it mentions the 14 speakers, 13 of them spoke in favor of increasing the council size. We've received many letters. They all spoke of increasing. So I thought, a sentence that would say almost all of the speakers spoke in favor of increasing the council size.
Yes, ma'am.
What you're talking about? Okay. Well, this is kind of out of, I'm not used to this type of reporting. I'm used to saying the problem, the scope, methodology, findings, analysis, options, and then conclusions. But one thing that Mr. Dorsey brought up about the input, which I would consider subjective findings, as opposed to objective findings, to indicate, for example, how many letters we received, how many responses received, both over emails, both in the initial meeting and then before it is finalized from the community input meetings, and to have that broken down in some way, mathematically, the percentage for this, percentage against, whatever, but always indicating, because it was subjective, that we gave that some consideration for people to know that we did consider it, but we also weighed it because it wasn't objective. But that we did acknowledge that we did look at how many people wanted a certain number of things. And I think that should have been reported in the report regarding the public input.
I don't have any objection to what Sheila is saying.
Okay. So here's me being me.
Yes.
And then, I'm wary of outside groups being overrepresented in this body.
I didn't understand what you said. Can you say it again?
I said I'm wary of outside groups being represented in this body, in the report. Now, if we want to say that we've gotten so many responses, I'm all good with that. But giving more weight to groups who have organized better than other groups have seems to be a slippery slope to me. If we're going to play this straight and play this by the book, then I think we need to be fair on all sides and not shade anyways because of well-organized efforts.
I agree, and I believe that's what the analysis is, that we reported, for example, I don't know how many, let's say 20 and 11 were from the same perspective, from the same group. Part of the analysis is that we received it, we saw it, we looked at it, but part of the analysis is that because we were aware of groups who were organized in a way, we might not have given as much weight to that, and we might have used it as equal weight, because the thing is that we showed that we looked, we saw, we did a thorough mental analysis, and we can even explain why, because we felt that it was organized, and that we knew this was the influence that this group was seeking in this effort. But we, being thoughtful people, looked at it, made that distinction, and reacted to it, and not give it any more weight than anything else. But if that's the report, it was there and was shown, and we saw, and we told them the value of it. It didn't have a lot of weight.
Yes, you haven't gone yet.
From my perspective, if someone's a county resident and they spoke up, I think we just count that as one voice. It doesn't matter to me if they were organized by somebody. They're still a person who votes and lives in this county who wanted their voice to be heard. So as long as it's not, truly an outside group of people from Annapolis or people from another state, if it's a Baltimore County resident that reached out, I think that's one person, and I don't care if they were organized or not.
Okay. And then we'll go to Jeff, sorry.
Two things. First, I hope as we go through Mr. Dorsey's recommendations, we'll do them one at a time rather than collectively. With regard to the first recommendation, I would add at the end of his sentence, spoke in favor of increasing the council size by 4 additional seats, period. So that's my comment on that one.
Okay.
I think if you kind of give an indication of which way the group that provided input was leaning, it lets the rest of the residents know what the testimony that we've heard already, and if they are in opposition, then they know to be present at the public hearings to voice their position, or else to submit, input, so that they kind of know where the sentiment that we've heard is, that they have a chance to respond to that sentiment.
That's good.
That's an interesting point.
I do believe that every citizen, Baltimore County, has a right to an opinion. I think it's important, though, that we be very careful when we are hearing them, we are seeing all the emails, they've all been distributed, and we have a good idea about how they feel. And as we know, when people are passionate about something, they're going to speak up more than others who really could care less. So I think it is wise to say we've received emails, phone calls, testimony from people talking about what they would like to see in their county council. But I don't think it's necessary to really go into the depth or details of how many were for this and how many were for that, because in the end, it's us that we're going to be the ones making that decision with their opinions in our heads, but we're still going to be the ones making it.
Good, Mr. Dorsey.
Well, my question would be in terms of, is it customary for the council when you have public hearings to in any way indicate in the minutes or whatever how many people spoke for or against a matter? No?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that we should be indicating in the report that we heard them.
Yeah, that we got them, received them, and
Right,
heard
that
them.
we heard them, and we can say whatever analysis we want to have, but to not mention them as if, we had a meeting, that's it. To mention that, how many? How many came in? How many people showed up at the meetings? I mean, those things are, I think what the public expects from us is that they want to see evidence that we looked at it, we saw it, and whether we gave it a lot of weight or a little weight, I mean, no one knows but the individual, but they want to see that they were received, they were read, they were heard. and they want to see that. And we put it out.
Okay.
And I agree that, you know, it should be stated that, but one thing we've got to realize too, whether it's 60, 100, it's still less than 1% of the Baltimore County's population. So we have to think of it that way too. There's 99.99% of the people out there that we don't know their decisions. So, I mean, granted, we can take, you can look at everyone's, what they've written and spoke about, and if you want to make a decision from that, that's great. I'm making a decision myself based on my knowledge of what the way the county's run, the way the council is getting the work done now, and things in that nature. That's what I'm here to do. I may be wrong, but I believe that's what I'm here to do.
Okay, so if I'm hearing correctly, and I may not be, so that's why I'm saying this out loud, is that we may decide to just list the number of emails, the number of contacts we've gotten from the community, and that's it? That's what we're doing? I don't hear any.
Right now, this sounds good.
Okay,
I haven't seen the black and white.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that too.
All right, Ms. Dorsey, you want to go to your next point?
The next point is in terms of recommendation to change the Big 8 jurisdiction in Maryland section, which appears on page 4. Currently, it concludes with a point of saying that the number of people represented in Montgomery and Prince George's County, and then looking at it only from the district level, not from the number of members, because of the fact that in Montgomery and Prince George's, they have at large. And looking at this approach, it concludes that a councilman in district in Baltimore County represents an average of 122,000, about 7,000 residents below the median average between Montgomery and Prince George's County. And so I'm bringing up the point that is we've talked about in one of the other presentations by staff, that Baltimore County has no incorporated municipalities. Those entities serve overlapping roles in terms of planning and zoning, public safety, public works, transportation, rec and parks, economics. They provide additional constituent services as another level. And so I've identified in terms of Montgomery County having 3 cities, incorporated cities, that represent a sizable portion of their population, and an even larger portion in terms of the 10 cities in Prince George's County. And what I have laid out for you is a comparison of Montgomery County with those cities and the impact proportionately on the citizens, and the same in terms of Prince George's County, so that you would have a revised 1B that demonstrates the impact of municipal governments. I think it's important because, as I've explained to people over the years when I was in budget, people would like to look and compare other jurisdictions, and I would point out, well, when Rockville has a problem and they want to add a police car, it only shows up in Rockville, not on the Montgomery County's budget. And they don't have to deal with it. But if there's a problem in Towson, it shows up for us. And so if you want to compare apples to apples, you have to include the impact that municipalities have, both in terms of services rendered as well as constituent services, for each of those counties. And that's where, when you do that, the concluding sentence is that Baltimore County's average of 122,000 is about 15,000 residents above the median average between Montgomery and Prince George's County. So that's a significantly different conclusion than the one that said that we are 7,000 below to saying 15,000 above.
All right. Anybody have any response to that? Yes, sir.
Couple different things. Number one, just generally, I'd feel more comfortable if we end up including this with using the term municipalities rather than cities. Mr. Dorsey seems to vary on this page between the two terms. Okay, so that's just a little stylistic thing. I get his point, but quite frankly, to me, that seems like he's trying to argue a position rather than, in other words, I don't think that you could accomplish the same thing with a paragraph rather than having to include all this additional documentation. Lastly, the table 1B, I'm concerned about that because unless I missed something and am mistaken, some of the information is not correct here. Now, if he's trying to infer, if you add the municipality as a influence, it should be this number of districts, okay, but Montgomery doesn't have 8 districts. It has 7. Prince George's doesn't have 11 districts. It has 9. And to put in here without a different kind of context, I think is misleading to the public.
I do have, in fact, if you look at the table above, and the bottom line from under Montgomery, the city-county equivalent, I indicate 1 district. For Prince George's, the city-county equivalent, 2 districts. So that's the genesis of the numbers that are appearing in 1B. It's not so as much the issue for me that whether or not the charts appear in the report, but it is a very significant statement concluding currently where it says that we are 7,000 below without the reality of the fact that there is a shared responsibility in the other counties that does not exist in Baltimore County. So I am fine with the concluding statement as, that can be modified to make it clear that the impact that municipalities have in terms of if you want to make a fair comparison within the state of Maryland, in terms of between jurisdictions, that you would need to incorporate that into that analysis.
Yes.
I would agree that I think prefer maybe a paragraph about the municipal effect. I'm a little confused by the chart.
Okay.
I didn't understand where the numbers were coming from either. I also would say in context of the report, it seems to talk about how many members each district represents, and I think I think that we should talk more in that paragraph about how many people per member, not per district. Because I think that's a real impact is, again, just from what I've seen, people want to see their county councilmen at their local events. They don't want to see staff. And so I think it's more about how many, per member than per district.
Okay.
I marked this earlier, not for the reason before that, but I marked this earlier because when I looked at this chart, some of the Frederick County, Baltimore City, they has as an at-large member. I'm assuming you're talking about the city council president. I don't know. Hartford had an at-large member. Montgomery County had 4 at-large members. And when I look at the fifth column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth column, population per district, but then it's population per member. So what it's showing, for example, that Montgomery County, really, each one of their council people really are only responsible for 96,000 as opposed to 151,000. And to me, the way the paragraph was written, it was like comparing Baltimore County to those counties. But when you actually put the at-large people in there, it's less. And I thought that should be clarified, that if we're going to say, we're going to compare it to Montgomery County, it was not like Baltimore County, I think it's 122,000 to 151, it's Baltimore County, 122,000 to 96. And I didn't think that paragraph explained that out. I mean, it showed it in the chart, but I didn't think it explained it completely, that Baltimore City, although it looks like Montgomery County, not Baltimore City, but Montgomery County has more than Baltimore County, but in reality, Montgomery County has less because the at-large is really in there. And I don't think that paragraph stated that. I don't know if it was trying to say that, but it didn't state it that way.
Yeah, I think it probably could be explained better. I mean, just looking at it from the surface, right? If you have people, members that have districts, those at-large members are not, I mean, they're representing those people as well, but that person in that district is still representing those people in that district, right? So you still have the responsibility of 151,000 in your district. You're just sharing representation with the at-large members. Everybody tracking with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think it should be.
So I think that should be explained better, perhaps.
Because I think the thing is when you talk about constituent services, because of those at-large members, they can go and do things in those districts. So like the impact is 96 as opposed to 151. And I think that needs to be clarified, because really that's to me, the focus is not on the council members. My focus is on the community members. Right. That what are community members wanting? What are they responding to? And the things they're responding to, and having the council people to service that. So I think that wasn't clear to me. I did have that, Mark.
Well, thank you for that. Anybody else, any other thoughts on that?
The only thing I'd add is it can work the other way too. Those council members who are at large don't have to bear the responsibility to just that district's constituency. So they could do something that is not as perceived by the district in the district's best interest, because they can appeal to the other 6 districts.
Right, and I think that's an important point to make when we talk about those at-large members, is that in lieu of what Montgomery County did, in lieu of expanding their county council seats, they said, let's put some at-large people in here. But the impact is for the residents is the same. It's like, am I one of 96,000 or 151,000? Because those at-large people are servicing me. So to compare just Baltimore County to Montgomery County 122 to 151, it's kind of unfair because they do have those at-large members. So it's really a comparison of 122 to 96.
So one thing I do want to mention, sorry if I'm speaking too much. One thing I do agree with Mr. Dorsey on is that last line in that paragraph. I don't think that about 7,000 residents, blah, 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 I don't think that needs to be included. I think that's a little misleading, especially if we're not clarifying what that means. So I'm okay with that being taken out. I don't know nobody else.
I don't have a problem with that being out, but I also think we need to clarify the impact that at-large members have on constituent service and those kind of things in the district.
The only reason I'm saying that is because that 7,000 number, even though, I mean, it's a real concrete number that may be telling a story that we're not necessarily telling in that context, right? So that's all I mean by that. Anybody else on that?
If you're going to do that sentence, the sentence about the at-large council not having direct representation is true, but I think we need to clarify that it does impact, because we see the impact of being responsible for 151 as opposed to 96. So I think that we need to clarify the impact that an at-large member does have on here. Because if, based on the first paragraph, that we were allowed to consider all things relevant to the expansion, we did think about at-large members. And
Very quickly.
And we didn't, right? But we thought, but at some point, people need to see that we did consider the impact of at-large membership.
Right.
And we didn't think it was best for Baltimore County. And I think this is a place to indicate our thoughtfulness about that there was an intentional thought and look at it. We could probably indicate it there, explain it at large, the impact of at-large membership.
There's a section when we did the survey that we thought about that. We could maybe expand instead of just say we deliberated this.
What are you talking about, Jeff?
Page 11, the bottom of page 11. We could add a couple paragraphs as to some of these points where the topic is raised.
I think it's important to include that in the report, because if we don't include that, then people are going to pick up the report and say, they didn't think about that. And I think it's important to include that we were thoughtful about that.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments on the second point? Staff, you're clear about the rewrites, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, Mr. Dorsey, your third point.
On page 6, table 4, I just offer up an alternative table in that the current one has 10 other jurisdictions. There's a wide range from 570,000 to 2,269,000. That's too wide of a gap, and one may be facing an accusation that we cherry-picked which jurisdictions to look at, even though for the argument of adding, they look good. But I offer a table that looks at 20 other jurisdictions tightly fit in terms of ranked by population surrounding Baltimore County, and therefore in terms of the charge of looking at somewhat peer counties, I provided that, as well as the idea of for the largest city or the county seat in terms of, again, that issue of the additional level of oversight through municipal members. And so, as I say, I'm just providing it as a offer to make the table number 4 a little bit stronger in terms of looking at more jurisdictions and tightening the range that the all around Baltimore County's 854,000 people. So this is just an offer of an alternative.
Don't look at me.
I was waiting for you to ask for comments.
Ms. Lewis, don't look at me. Go ahead.
I had a problem with this part, probably not for the reasons Mr. Dorsey said. I think it was important to indicate.
Hold on, Ms. Lewis.
Oh, it's an internal reference on the chart. Okay. Okay.
Can you hold that thought and let's address his point, and then we'll go to your point?
Okay.
Is that okay?
I think it was the same point for.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. If it's close, then go ahead.
I thought it was. You tell me.
Ma'am, go ahead. I'll shut up.
Tell me, and I'll wait.
Okay, you go ahead. Go.
This seemed more to be about regionalism, in that Baltimore County is one of 2 where they're encircling an independent city. That being the case, I really didn't understand the reasoning for the second paragraph or even the chart on page 5.
Second paragraph on page.
In that same place, no, right there on page, under comparison of jurisdictions outside of Maryland. And you, in the first part, it's on page 4, comparison of jurisdictions outside of Maryland. And they talked about the 2 counties with independent cities in the first paragraph. And then they talked about like comparing. And since we're so unique, I mean, I didn't even see the point for the second paragraph or for the chart at the top of page 5, because it's so unique. I mean, I just didn't see the point of even bringing that in as an issue beyond, you know, our independence and how we interact with the city, which I thought would eliminate the need for the chart that Mr. Dorsey was proposing.
No, that's a different total topic. What you're looking at on page 5 deals with their effort to try to compare counties that surround a hub. Mine is not doing that. Mine is addressing just in terms of overlapping. It's not a surrounding issue. It is overlapping jurisdictions. So that's a different topic.
Right, and that's why I said that if that's eliminated, we wouldn't have to do that. So, okay. If we eliminated that, we wouldn't have to even go to the overlap. But I might have, like I said, I might be wrong, but I'm thinking if we eliminate that issue, then we wouldn't have to concern ourselves with that.
But part of the resolution was a charge for us to not only look at peer counties in Maryland, but also looking at peer counties outside of Maryland. So in some ways, to comply with the resolution, we would need to provide some kind of listing of peer counties outside of Maryland.
The only one we compare it to is in St. Louis.
It doesn't have to be an exact comparison, though.
I think when we talk about jurisdictions, the way that uniqueness, that division of government, I think that's what makes us unique. And I don't want us to go too far off comparing, because then we go off too much off comparing, then there's too much expectation. And now if you're going to talk about regionalism, that's another issue, because we do participate as a county government in regional activities beyond just Baltimore County. But to say we compared, and we know there's only one other place where we compare to, but that's just my thoughts.
I think that the research on page 4 and 5 helped us get to that point where we understand how unique we are. Mm-hmm. So even though it kind of diverges, it's like we had to figure that out, or at least get the information presented to us so we could digest it. So even though I think it doesn't go where we're focusing, it says, okay, we've examined a variety of scenarios. That doesn't match, that doesn't match. Here's what matches, here's where we need to focus.
I agree with you. And if you could write that down and we can take this out and put that in, it'd be great.
Well, so I think what Jeff is getting to, which this is not for us, right? This is for the audience that hasn't gone through the last 5-6 months. Okay, 3.5, feels like 6 months of this, right? This is for the residents of Baltimore County that haven't gone through what we've been doing for the last 3 months. So I think audience is important, right? And who this is actually written to. So I think they do need the background information of what we've been actually looking at. So that's just my point.
And I think the way we've been looking at it, I mean, the way that he explained it, it's understood. We looked at it and why we looked at it and the way we looked at it, as opposed to the way it's here. It's like we just made this direct assumption, which would make the need for Mr. Dorsey's table needed. But if we explained how and why we looked at it the way you said, then, like I said, there's no need to actually put us in that place, because we're explaining that we did look and this didn't apply to us, like you said.
I don't think, so this is just my opinion. I don't think the two things are exactly the same. I think they're dealing with two different issues. One is the history of what we've been dealing with And two, what Mr. Dorsey seems to be doing is showing these are counties around the country, different, similar size, and this is how they're broken up as far as governance. I don't think that's I don't think it's a bad point. But I don't think they're the same.
So, but he's recommending a change, and we want to add the table, that's fine, but he was recommending the table.
I didn't say that.
Right, I mean, he was recommending that the table be changed as opposed to just explaining the table and adding this as an additional. I don't have a problem with the benefit.
Anybody else? Yes, hold it, Jeff, let me go.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I like the expanded table.
Jeff?
I would just say you could add Mr. Dorsey's table with the kind of caveat, this was what was presented by staff. This is what, came from one of the members as part of our understanding of the issue. So it's not who's right or who's wrong, but we're focusing narrower and narrower.
I'm fine with leaving it up to staff, whichever way they want to do it. I just offered it up as this additional information. If they want to continue with their original, fine. If they want to add this other one in place of it, I don't think you need both. Whatever staff wants to do, I'm fine with it.
I think it makes sense to combine the two.
Yeah, I think so too.
Broad range of both population as well as a large number of counties that are pretty much in line with Baltimore County.
I've got no problem with that. Anybody else?
And we're going to get a clarification about us being unique as compared to these other places where they're not so unique.
I think a sentence as far as when we're going back to page 4, I think a sentence about, in the course of studying this, studying the subject, staff presented X, Y, and Z. That we looked at it, we studied it, we're moving on. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I like what he said. I'm recorded, it's recorded, so somebody can go back and listen to it.
Okay. Yes, Al.
I'm kind of confused now because I'm looking at this report and I'm reading this conclusion, and I'm saying to myself, the last sentence in the conclusion, well, in the first paragraph in the conclusion, the last two sentences. However, the final member majority voted for expansion in the first two rounds. By the final round, the voting process narrowed it, and we're back at 7. If you're telling me that you voted for an expansion, then you back at 7, why? If you voted for an expansion, why are you still at the same number?
I think, so what happened was that it was left from basically 9 was eliminated. It was 7 and 11. The folks who
Understand our process.
originally wanted to do 9 decided that they didn't want to do 11. So that's what happened. So now maybe this could be worded a little bit differently
Yes,
to be clearer.
Right, because,
but we know what happened.
right.
Okay.
I would like the conclusion, since we haven't, if this is a draft, and we're going to present this to the public, and why can't we just take the conclusion out? And it's like, we haven't finished. We can't finish because we haven't heard what you had to say at the 2 millions that are coming up. So we really haven't finished. I mean, because I've had the same problem that you had, and it's like, well, do we really have to say that and just leave it? And
That was my
we get
initial
your
point
final?
that I was making.
That's up to the commission. That's up to you, to the members. If you want to strike the whole first paragraph and just leave the conclusion with the last paragraph,
conclusion with the last.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. That leaves us a lot of room not to be boxed in by, you released a report that says such and such, and then you had the meetings, and, I mean, that leaves us.
Simple.
Yes.
I like simple.
All right, strike out the first paragraph and conclusion.
That's just my thought. You're all good with that? Okay. Mr. Dorsey, your last point.
Okay, this is a recommendation to change the Baltimore County demographic trends section, page 7. As I indicate there, and I didn't include charts. I've shared with you all charts before. Okay, there's nothing in the report that addresses how changing the number of districts can impact the demographic makeup of the districts. And so consider it is a clear charge of Resolution 3223 that due to an underrepresentation of people of color compared to the demographic makeup of the county, the work group was to look at the issue of diversity on the council and whether a possible expansion of county council would improve the opportunity for diversity. While no change in the council configuration would guarantee an increase in Black and other minority representation, it is possible for some changes to improve the chances for election. Under the current 7-district configuration, the average number of residents per district is 122,000. That configuration has resulted in only one predominantly African-American district, 73% African-American, on the west side of Baltimore County, despite the fact that the areas of Woodlawn through Pikesville, African Americans comprise 132,000 of the 229,000 residents, or 58%. At the 122,000 residents per district level, the county falls short when attempting to fit the 229,000 residents into 2 districts and still provide 122,000 remaining residents for a Southwest Council district. However, under a 9-district configuration, average district size 95,000, it would be easier to carve out 2 majority Black districts utilizing 119,000 of the 132,000 African-American residents. Yet the 9-district configuration, it would be challenging to maintain one of the 2 districts at the current 70% plus level. Under an 11-district configuration, average district size 77,700, it would be possible to carve out 2 districts, one more than 60% Black and one another more than 70% Black. So my concern is, all throughout this report as it exists right now, we really don't answer the question of what can we do to improve the diversity on the council. And the one thing that was behind it all was whether or not the question, would adding additional districts move us toward the idea of more diversity on the council? And so I think we need to address it in some way.
Yes.
On page 6, if we look at how diverse the county has become, with the Black population, the Hispanic and Latino population has grown by 194% in Baltimore County. Mr. Dorsey, why are we concentrating just on Black minority when there are so many other minorities? Do we make a district for each minority?
No.
I don't understand the reasoning. I just don't.
Well, one, in terms of it was part of the problem that the council faced with the last redistricting, because it was being brought up by, and we've received recent letters from the NAACP and the ACLU, that in terms of there was opportunities to create a new district and the county did not. But if you will look at the charts that I have shared with you all on the 11th member configuration, there would be another district that would be created with 53% minority population in other parts of the county, as well as 4 more districts that would have more than 40% minority makeup. So I address it here in terms of the the issue of the black population on the west side because it has become a clear and evident issue. But when you break it down into 11 and you look at my charts, you would see that there's great opportunities for many people of other minority groups in other parts of the county.
But I do think we have created some opportunity by saying that the council can keep other jobs, by recommending that it be part-time, by recommending an increase in salary is a huge part of it. I just don't think you can guarantee diversity, quite frankly, no matter what we do. By increasing the number of council people, there are many reasons why we should do that with the number of people we have in the county itself, but everyone deserves the proper representation. And I feel like when we talk about the minority districts, we have the 4th district, we talk about creating another one, there are so many other minorities out there that need to be represented.
There are no other minority as in concentrated locations throughout the county. And more so, the issue that I'm saying is the report doesn't address it. To stay at 7 is to say, well, either you're saying diversity is not a problem, or one is saying the current status of the configuration of the council is sufficient and we don't need to do anything to improve diversity. But part of the charge is to look seriously at what steps can be taken to improve diversity on the council. And I dare say no one can say that in terms of when you look at the charts, look at the breakdown of the county, that having more districts would not increase the percentage of minorities and African Americans in certain areas of the county, and thereby you can improve the opportunity for them to be elected.
Ms. Dorsey, I have one question to ask, and I guess this is kind of confusing to me, but are we just speaking about the African-American population as opposed to all of the minorities that are listed in Baltimore County? Because everything I hear you saying is it's about the African-American community. If we're going to list anything, I wanted to include all the minorities. That means Hispanics, Latinos, all of them.
I have provided you all with charts that show the breakdown. You could see from the charts where there are other population groups that are concentrated in areas of the county, and they will either in total become a majority of the district, or they will have such a proportionate amount within those districts that they will increase their political power within that particular district. So I only bring this because that issue of African Americans is a really evident, which then generated the concern of lawsuits for the county because it's such a large enclave, concentrated. I mean, yeah, there are other minorities in the county, but they aren't concentrated. But by having 11 districts, you actually create better conclaves up in Padonia and in Parkville and in areas down in terms of Essex-Dundalk area. Those areas will have a greater opportunity as well. It never happens with 7. And so my point is, right now, the report leaves out a big chunk of what was the charge. It sort of, oh yeah, this is what the growth has been, but it says nothing about, well, what will we do to address it?
Yes.
So I don't want to give the staff a tremendous amount more work. I was wondering if any of the research that's been done on counties that have just more representation per population, are the representative bodies also more diverse? Because I think presenting that information in the report might be a way of addressing the very real issues that we were asked to address and seeing, does that help? Do we get a more representative sample of the population with a higher percentage of elected officials to population at large? Obviously, it's never going to be perfect. I'm pretty sure we've got like 50% women in the county and It's not up there. So there's no way to make it perfect. But I think if we want to make sure that we're addressing that part of the charge that is important, I think that might be one way to determine is if what we're looking at actually could make a difference.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, as a political scientist that's been doing this for 25, 30 years, there are people running their PhDs right now trying to figure that question out.
So maybe beyond the scope of
So
what we're
it's,
doing.
yeah, it's,
I think diversity is just a really tough thing to guarantee, no matter what we do. People are going to vote.
You're exactly right. I'll go this, and something we're not looking at either. We have a gentleman sitting at the end of the table here, Tony. He ran for District 6. Black gentleman, ran against Mr. Artel. And the way the district was set up, if he'd have had the D next to his name, he would have won. He had the R next to his name. And we have to look at that also.
Have to look at that. It factors into it, the R's and the D's, what you've got behind your name, it factors into it how people vote.
We have to consider all that.
And that's what I was kind of coming up to, the simple fact that, you know, of course, I would like to see diversity all over the country. But the simple matter is, you know, you get behind that curtain, you're going to vote mainly a D or an R. And it depends on who that person is.
In terms of Ds and Rs, I've done a chart also that breaks those 11 in terms of Democrat, Republican, and it does provide for additional, you know, districts as well for other groups. So it's there. The issue is when you have smaller districts, you have more opportunity for people in various areas, in various groupings to do it. By having smaller districts, we talked about the issue of candidates, new candidates, younger candidates, women candidates, being able to campaign without the big burden of trying to reach 78,000 people versus trying to reach 122,000 people. But also it's the issue. Working in Baltimore County, we had a police department that was in trouble because it did not have diversity, okay? It wasn't that they had necessarily a strict rule saying you can't be hired, but there were things that in the process of that laid open that it made more challenging to get people of color on the force. The police department began to change certain things in terms of their exams and entries, and not making it less qualified, but taking away some of those social roadblocks that stop people from being able to get a job. Baltimore County was able to then improve its diversity status. So it's not a matter of just saying, oh, well, the opportunity's there. Our question is there something we can do to improve it? And that's what I'm trying to address. Is there something we can do to improve it? And I'm saying that if you look at the charts, opportunity comes with smaller districts.
I'm looking at page 6, and I am aware of the change in demographics because I see it in my community, Pikesville. People think Pikesville, they think large Jewish population. Yeah, they're there. But we also are getting a large Muslim population. Milford Mill Swim Club, famous, is now a Muslim center. Okay? We're getting a lot of that. We're getting a lot of Hispanics. I see the demographic change. And I think that demographic change is a reason why we should consider expanding the county council. Because the members now have responsibility for more things than they ever had when this was set up. The population was very homogeneous, everybody's alike. You didn't have to worry about a complicated holiday calendar. It was very simple. Now, 68 years later, it's like holiday, oh my goodness. When you made a decision, you only had to worry about 1, 2, 3. Now when you make a decision, you got to worry about, is it going to impact this group, impact that group? I have to be aware of those issues. the county council members have to be aware much more than they did before. The expectations of the residents are the same. They want accountability, they want access, they want transparency. Now, basically, I think our members are doing a great job. And I base that on that they always get reelected, unless they decide not to run again. So the residents are pretty glad with what they have. But now we're getting this more diverse thing. The council members have to be concerned about more, even for certain simple things like zoning. Back when this was set up, it was a zoning change, no problem. You had all this land. But now it's got the ERDL. When you want a development, say, wait a minute, how's it going to impact the ERDL? Okay? So we're talking about this diversity, this change is now making it more responsibility on council members. And then we would probably need more council members. And I think this is the reason why we need more council members. Now, I'm not arguing for any number. We can talk about that at some point. But the reason why we need it is not because to ensure that there is any race represented on the county council, as opposed to now, instead of having all this land, now we have less land. So when there's a zoning change, you just can't go in to do it. Okay, we got to worry about impact. Now we have infrastructure that was just being put in then. But now it's about going back and redoing infrastructure. These are the different kind of impacts that are here now that weren't there before, that might say, yes, we need to expand and have more council members because there's more things that involved in their job than it was in the past. To say we're going to do that to ensure that a particular minority demographic is there, that to me, that comes in. Once once the county council, if they sit by our recommendation, whatever it is, say yes, the people say yes, then the actual drawing lines for those districts come in. And that's what the court case was about, because the county, what happened was the council member rejected the redistricting commission's recommendation for that particular district to have 78% black as opposed to have 68% black as opposed to 78% black, because what they had recommended that they did spread the blacks out into the district so they have a better opportunity. And the county council rejected that and said, we want this district to have 78% black. That's when the NAACP, ACLU, took it to the judge because they were violating the VRA by packing, and that's against the VRA. So that was the substance of that case. Now, I'm all for saying, because of diversity and all the other issues, that there's more responsibility for county council members. Yeah, we probably need more, but not to say I'm going to guarantee a black one.
And so a couple things here. One, piggybacking off of Mr. Lewis, I think part of our charge is not to set the county up for future failure, right? And if we go down that road and actually do what basically Ms. Lewis said not to do, and to say that it's about African Americans, and we're drawing lines for that specific purpose, and we put that in writing, I guarantee you there's going to be a lawsuit.
Absolutely.
From somebody else 15, 20 years down the road. I guarantee it, right? Because that's the way
That's right.
things work as far as political power in this country. It's happened over and over, generation after generation. So I do agree that there should be more districts. We need to be cognizant of the line here that says, reading from the resolution, whereas community activists are advocating the need for more diverse representation and a lower ratio of constituents per council member, including potential council expansion, and the county council seeks to examine this issue and develop a consensus recommendation on whether any changes to the structure of the council are appropriate and serve the goal of improving representation. So I think our charge is not to focus on one specific demographic, it's to improve representation and to do it for all people of the county. And the other thing I was going to throw out here that I guess I'll throw out now is that I think part of it has to be an independent redistricting commission. If Baltimore County and Baltimore City can go there, Zeke Cohen can go there. If we're going to recommend it, then we need to go all the way and say there needs to be an outside process other than politicians. Mic drop.
In terms of what you all are saying, I bring up, and I was focusing on the issue of African Americans, not that this body has any ability to do that. That's going to be by the group who draw the lines. But the problem with that case before was they tried to stay within 7, and it wasn't going to be possible to do 7 without diluting the population for the one predominantly African-American district. All I'm saying is a redistricting commission will not have the opportunity to do it right if there's no give on the number of districts. And so, right, so I only focused on African Americans because it brings it home. So it's clear, because when looking at the charts before, said, oh, there's a district over there that is already a minority. They were like 50%, 50.6% minority. That doesn't get necessarily you in terms of a district. So I bring it home to make it clear that in terms of, you look at those charts again, when you all have a chance, look at the makeup between each of the minority groups, and you will see the strength that comes by having an increase. And I'm saying that we are not, it's not our task to do it, nor is it possible to guarantee anything, but you gotta create a doorway for something that's possible. If you stick with 7, you're not opening the doors of possibility.
Anybody else?
I mean, could we add a section to the report that says, some members of the council of this group agree that increasing the size will increase the opportunity for a more diverse representation without getting into the numbers?
I don't think there's a person that disagrees with that, is there?
No.
All right, staff, figure it out.
We're reporting.
Okay.
Tony, if I could.
Yes, ma'am.
Being a minority on the Baltimore County Council for 8 years, when I was elected in the 2nd District, I thought that my job as a council person was to represent every person in my district. I didn't care what color, what nationality, what gender, who they identified as. And I think as we're electing people, we're trying to elect good people who will do the job, who will take their district and get to know the African American district, the people in it, get to know the Indian people in it, the Latin American people in it. I have been to more synagogues and more Black churches. I have been to Israel. I have been to mosques. It made a difference in my life. It opened my world, which I would say I thought it was already open. Well, it wasn't. But that experience as a minority on the county council made me work harder to get to know everyone in my district. And I think that's just important for us all to remember, that who we elect, we need to elect the good people who are going to do the job and do it well and represent everyone in their district.
Okay, thank you.
Can I give my story?
Sorry, sir?
In 1982, I was elected on the Central Committee, the first African-American elected to anything in this county. I was elected in district that was 2/3 Jewish. I got there because of my work in the other 1/3. And yet, after that point in time, the county did come back and create a predominantly African-American second district. The county came back and created a predominantly African-American 10th district. They have more recently created a sub-district in 11A. So it is not that what is, can be possible. And I do agree with you in terms of that aspect, because I know in terms of the support I received when I was elected. But in terms of still creating opportunities for people, it was not an unheard of thought to create a councilmatic district, to then create a legislative district, to even create a legislative sub-district, to try to move forward objectives related to diversity.
Okay. All right, so hearing all the points that were been brought up by Mr. Dorsey, anyone else in as far as the draft report, any other comments on anything else? Yes, sir.
I think this group has talked about this a couple of different times, not as a major subject, but as certainly a subject worth considering. I think it should go in the report that one of the concerns with whatever number of districts we come up with, that we not separate communities.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I completely agree with that.
So do I.
okay.
To me, that's one of the most important things that needs to be done, is keeping communities together.
I don't want to get personal, but that was one of the reasons why that court case, because our community was separate. We requested that to be one. And that was rejected because this person wanted to book that. They didn't, and they said, I don't want to lose those black constituents. We were part of that court case. But my comment about the reports on page 7. Fiscal impact is expanded on the council, and you did a great job putting it there. But I remember when we were talking here, I think someone mentioned that at some point, this area would have to be done over anyway, because it was kind of time for it to happen. But that wasn't mentioned. So I thought that when we were talking about what it was going to cost for the expansion, blah, blah, and all that kind of stuff, it kind of mentioned also that even if this didn't happen, that I think it was mentioned someplace else further that even if this wasn't going to happen, there might be a need to redo some of this anyway. So it's not like, oh, we're going to spend all this money just for this, but that kind of has to be. And it's not, I mean, yeah, right. It's so that it's like, oh, we spent all that money just for because we said we wanted more people, as opposed to, well, we really had to do some of this anyway. So just kind of mitigate the reason for it. It's on page 7 when you talk about this impact of expanding.
I think staff has a comment on that, right?
Yeah, the last, on page 9, in the section labeled capital budget cost projections, the last sentence there is, it is worth noting that the council office space has not been substantially renovated since 1989 and may warrant a renovation regardless of additional council members.
Right, I saw that, but can people read it? And we're going to have this for the average person. That needs to be together. You can repeat it again back there if you like, but it needs to be.
On page 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can sit there with that discussion.
Yeah, sure.
All right, anybody else? Again?
No, no, not me. I made a copy of what Emily sent in, and I thought in terms of, she's not here, but in terms of addressing some of the concerns that she had, and I thought I had a copy of it.
Actually, staff made a copy of Emily's comments.
Okay.
If you want to just take one and pass it down?
So noted for the record that member Emily Brophy did her homework, and member John Cluster was just out of the country, didn't do anything, so. So I see there's 4 comments. I don't see anything substantially wrong with any of those comments.
I would agree.
So if no one else has any comments on those, that if the staff can incorporate her comments. Yes.
In terms of that first one, saying, Laura, could it be that, asterisk and point out that she replaced the former member on effective date or something like that, so that the former member is also identified?
Yep.
Good point.
On page 8, this might be, it was a very minor thing. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of the average person looking at it. On table number 5, we talk about the percentage for, I guess I would say, fringe benefits. And it's technically correct. It's at 0.54. So someone looking at it may think 5% as opposed to actually 50%. And I think those kind of little things is when the everyday person looks at it, I think it makes a difference. We look at it from the eyes of we're being involved in it and we know what it means. So I like to look at it from the eyes of a novice who doesn't know and is going to just read it like that.
Ms. Lewis, say that again, please.
On table 5,
Okay.
the 4th column, they talk about the fringe benefits. And it's listed as 0.5, and someone looking at it thinks it's 5%, and it's really 50%. And I'm just saying, just from the eyes of someone looking at it, they would just get a misinterpretation. Just recommending that they see that there.
Good catch, man.
And I guess for the final report, when I'm looking at table 6, I thought it was very interesting, the significant impact of the difference between, and this is not for the change report, but this is very good, one reason for the report, because we're seeing some of the things that, in black and white, the significant difference between the number of members for an expansion. I thought that was interesting. And also when I looked at the council people's salary, and it's their salaries.
Yes.
That's enough right there to justify their I mean, that's enough justification right there for it. I mean, no reason. I'm so then go, wow. I mean, I'm not saying change anything, but I'm just saying, like, people looking at it, they're gonna go, wow, those kind of things, yeah. Yes. And I think that's, well, you know, the objective data is important to have the objective data because it does kind of even, you know, the playing field. Makes it easier for people to understand.
Okay. Anyone else?
There was one other thing I mentioned.
I shouldn't have waited so long.
You made me give you time to think. And I'm not saying to change anything, but just came up about, just went that fast, about how much of the budget it takes. That's it? Is this the one? Oh, yeah. I think it's table 8 on page 10. When it talks about the expense of the county council on the overall impact of the budget. And when you see those comparisons, I think people have an understanding and why the county council, should be expanded. And it's definitely justified because when you look at it to how much of other jurisdictions' budgets is taken up, we're doing pretty good, I think. And I think that it justifies, and I'm glad we have that there, so people can see and understand those comparisons. I think it helps the public to understand how we kind of got to our decision. We weren't being frivolous with their money because it wasn't our money to spend, although it is, but.
Yes, sir.
Again, like Cheryl said, I'm not asking for a change in this report, but previously I'd asked if we could get an update from the budget office in terms of an alternative approach of not revamping the whole thing, but just how to accomplish things by just adding additional offices, which could then be accomplished through relocations and leasing and things like that. And it would change the timetable as well in terms of how long. So if we could still get something back from the budget office as to a less costly plan.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes.
I don't see it. I'm not saying change this report, but I think it needs to be in the report. How this works out, if we decided that the county council should be expanded, how does that work for a timeline? How does that work for a timeline of, based on elections and that kind of thing? How does that work? And also, if we decide it should be expanded, not only the timeline, not only that, but whenever it's come up the timeline, but I don't know if we have to, maybe I'm overthinking, because if the county council decides for expansion, whatever the number is, and it is expanded, I mean, there's a lag between then it has to go somewhere to another commission to draw it. I mean, so even if the decision is made, it's not like, okay, it's going to be next election, whatever. I mean, should that be also in this report? That
I think it's on page 12, right?
it wasn't very, I don't think it was very clear. I read it, but that's what made me think about it, because it wasn't kind of clear. Because even there's a thing of, okay, if the decision is made, let's say in June, just 2024, then at some point there's got to be another commission that's going to draw these new districts, and then there's going to have to be an election and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, that there's this timeline, so there's understanding that decisions made and disclosed, that there are things that would have to happen for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I think the first paragraph on page 12 deals with.
Well,
Maybe it needs to be spelled out a little bit more.
yeah.
But I think the timeline, basic timeline's there.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, because when I read it, it wasn't clear, and I had to reread it, and I had to read and reread it, and then put what I know
Right.
into it for it to make sense. And I think it should be written so that people now know as opposed to, I know it makes sense because what I know. Does that make sense?
So staff don't write just like lawyers, write just like regular people.
Thank you. Eighth grade level preferably.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You're rolling your eyes back there, Mr. Boswick.
No.
All right. Anybody else on the draft report?
The wheels were just turning, like, how exactly, do we
Right.
write it?
Right, yeah, right, because because in reality, anyone who's really, really interested in this issue, when they read it, that's the first thing they're gonna start thinking. And depending on where they're coming from, their thing is, they didn't tell us because they really want to hide it, they want to delay it, as opposed to telling people up front, this is when it's gonna happen.
Well, yeah, okay. All right, so what I'd like to do is, we do this carefully. So I'd like to get this draft report approved, but I can't coach you in how to make your motion. So someone's gonna have to noodle this through about what we've talked about, the changes that we've expressed for staff to make, and then make a motion to approve the document.
The document must be approved with changes that we've already discussed, right?
Does the motion need to include all of the changes expressly?
Right.
It needs to tell staff that they should do what we told them to do.
I'll make this motion. I'll make a motion that we charge the staff to get us a new draft within 7 days, that we can then decide.
With the recommendation.
Yes, with the recommendations. The motion is that we get that the staff give us, incorporate all the changes and recommendations, get us that draft within 7 days.
Well, but that really can't be a motion because that's not something that's already done.
Other than that, I can't make.
As I was going to say, we wouldn't have another chance to vote on it. So I think you want a motion like, we're authorizing the staff to make necessary changes in the draft report, and we give them authority to move ahead to do that. And that will be the report that goes out.
I got a
Motion?
I am.
I got a motion?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so ayes have it. Staff, you're directed
Can't
to,
count your abstentions.
they ain't here, they don't count. All right, so staff, you have your direction on that. Al?
No, I'm just, because I was listening to Ms. Lewis, and I'm just trying to figure, because we have a meeting on the 2nd, right?
No, we don't, but that's something we're going to discuss.
Oh, okay.
We don't have one yet. All right, so in my wee hours of the morning when I wasn't doing anything, believe that, if you want to. Can you? Based on our vote of last time, I am presenting a compromise, which again, this is a compromise, and the numbers that I will discuss are fluid. But since we are all over the place as far as the number, or actually we're between 2 and 3 numbers, the top of this talks about kind of the voting history of what happened through the February 12th meeting. So under the bold where it says potential compromise, the idea here is that based on population that exists today, the compromise would be to move to 9 members. If population drops, and that number doesn't have to be 70,000. That's just something that came in my head. It can be 80,000. It can be something else. If population drops, then that would be an automatic trigger in their charter to then drop back to 7. And if those numbers can continue to increase to let's say 110,000 or 120,000, because Emily had an idea of maybe doing 110,000, is that that would be an automatic trigger to go to 11. All right, so the idea would be a compromised number of 9. If population continues to increase, then there wouldn't be any choice. It would be written in the charter that it would have to go to 11. And if there's a decrease in population, then we revert back to 9 based on that same automatic trigger. So that, and you can read the document yourself. I'm not going to read everything because this isn't Towson, and I don't have to read everything. So look at that and give me your thoughts.
I like the compromise. If you don't have a consensus, I like the compromise. Don't like the triggers.
Like the what?
Don't like the triggers,
Okay.
because there are other things that are impacting the population, whether it grows or sustains itself, that that has to do with environmental issues, developmental issues. And to put that trigger in there, to me, is kind of locking future generations. Because you know we went through, 3 generations to get from there to here. It's locking future generations. I don't have a problem with the increase. I just have a problem with the automatic triggers in the charter.
The reason why I thought of that was because one of the problems that we are currently having that has been brought up several times is a lack of willingness to change based on what's been done before. And if you remove that obstacle, meaning people changing because they feel like changing as opposed to they have to change, then I think that's maybe better. But it's just my, I can see your point of view on that.
So, Mr. Wilson, for clarification, are you saying that the numbers?
Yeah, I can see 9.
No, what I'm saying is when I look at when I'm saying the numbers,
Oh, you mean the trigger numbers?
yes.
Yeah, I have a problem. I have the problem with the trigger numbers because there is
You have a problem with the numbers or a problem with the philosophy of the trigger?
possibly the trigger because, like you said, if we went to certain, it would automatically go to 11.
Right.
When and if something happened and it really would be justified to go to 13, it's like, oh, we can't go above 11. I mean, so I just have a problem with the triggers. I don't have a problem with the expansion to 9. I have a problem with the triggers. And only because it's it would be in the charter, which would means it would be a little bit more involved to get it changed because it's in the charter. If it was just a recommendation that you keep in your mind going forward, that's something, but to be in the charter, it takes a...
Well, so let me clarify that and then we'll go, Mr. Dorsey. This will be a recommendation from this commission. The council can decide that they don't want to go there and to even float this as an idea before the public, because the public has to vote on this, right? So again, this is just our recommendation. All right, go ahead, Mr. Dorsey.
But when you indicated in terms of suggested maximum 120,000, that it would trigger going to 11, well, we're already above 120,000. So doesn't that justify why it should be at 11 now?
Well, that's why I said that number can be, it's flexible. I mean, if that's 110 or 105, I got no problem with the number. The issue was, how do we and going to Ms. Lewis, her problem with it, how do we bake into the process that if population continues to grow, politicians can't sit on their hands and just say, well, we're not going to move, we're not going to do anything. So.
Would the trigger be, would it, instead of saying if it grows, instead of saying you automatically go to a number, could it say you automatically have to convene a work group? To consider it, as opposed to saying you have to go to a number.
You could do that. But again, it's just a recommendation. I mean, yeah, yes, ma'am.
I think it specifies our findings, what we have found as a group, and it, instead of convening another work group, it actually gives guidance to the governing body of what we have recommended to move forward when the numbers become whatever it is. I think it's a good idea to do that.
I think the numbers, like if our group decides 9, based on the current population, what does that do per district? And that's the number we're comfortable with. So if in the future, the population increases, that warrants getting the same representation by council person, that would be the trigger, not versus a specific population number.
Right.
Okay. So if the ratio is the same, then that would prompt it.
Right, but I would also throw in that you definitely would want an odd number, odd number. So you would need to work that into the ratio.
Right.
I think it
That's
gives future council some guidance to go by.
Yeah, I like that idea.
But
Everybody's just looking.
I also like your point, though, that it could swing the other way. That should be,
Likely,
what?
not likely.
Not likely.
But it's there in case.
What's happened in Baltimore City? I mean, they had to lose council members, city council members.
Decades, though.
But we're not doing this for 10 years. We're doing this for 40, 50 years, hopefully, right?
What they had unique,
Baltimore City lost population real quick, though, actually, if you really think about it.
yeah, and they had a unique situation.
It was,
There were different issues. I mean, the same way there's only 2 of us in the country. It's only 2 of us, right, it's only 2 of us in the country where we have.
Editorial comment is not from all of us members of the commission.
2 of us in the country where
but
we
there was
have the
also
city,
white flight
it's not
during
the
the
county,
70s
so,
and
I mean,
80s.
so we're unique.
All right, one at a time. Yes, please.
So should we have a motion on whether or not we're going to recommend this, or is this not the time?
We're missing people.
Two paper, yeah.
Well, staff and I were talking about this earlier, so I'm a pretty good judge of human nature. I think Mr. Cluster's not moving off of 7.
Agreed,
And I think Emily is okay with 9.
agreed.
So I don't see any reason to wait. Yes, sir.
I'm not comfortable with that. I mean, in terms of we were going to take a revote, and I think they should be here to be part of it, in terms of they may have an argument about some of the numbers that we have here or whatever. We're saying we're going to move forward with the public meetings based on the report they're providing. I think when we settle, we can settle on whether we want to do this or not, but I don't think it's appropriate to take a vote that's supposedly a final vote when we have 2 of our members not here.
With those 2 absent, then don't we have enough to make a quorum?
You do. I'm just saying in terms of they did not know, Emily did not know that we were going to take a vote on something like this. And I don't think it's fair to have a vote on a topic you didn't know was even going to be on the agenda.
So why don't we do this? Go ahead.
Are we allowed to vote over email? Is that permitted?
or virtually.
Yes.
Is you're presenting this to modify our report before the public hearings, or is this
No,
subsequent to, after the public hearings, or is this for just digestion?
This is to get us to a consensus, not necessarily a decision.
So you want a consensus vote?
Well, we're at the end of February, folks. I mean, we got we got a month. So we got to get to the end of this process sooner or later.
Come to some conclusion.
Right. Yes.
What if someone put in a motion saying, we'll take a vote and leave the vote open for a period of 7 days to allow anyone not present to vote via email?
I think I will leave that to the lawyers in the room. I'm not sure if that's.
I'm a lawyer and I don't know if that's okay, so.
I don't know if that's okay, to be honest with you.
I mean, if you have, that's the case, if you have a quorum, you got to seal your vote.
Well, we do have a quorum. So maybe, how about that if a vote is taken, it's not a recommendation of this commission and subject to another round of voting at a later time.
Well, I think that would be kind of implied that even though this is where we are right now, based on what we hear from the public, we might do something different. I don't envision that, but we might do something different. But if if we want to take a vote on these right now.
Well, how many people are comfortable taking a vote now? How many people are not? Okay, so it's half and half. All right, so let's table this then. We don't have to take a vote tonight on that. But that being said, we are going to have to meet again. I'd like to meet again before the public hearings and to nail this down. It can be a Zoom meeting. We talked about March 7th as a possible date.
What day of the week is that?
That's a Thursday.
1 week from today.
A Zoom sounds
I
very.
thought Jeff was asking the question about were you trying to do this to narrow it down before the session? So I'm trying to understand if we're not trying to do it before the public meetings, why do we have to do it before the public meetings?
I think it'd be better for us to have a consensus before the public hearing, before the public meetings, so they know where we
So
stand.
you would incorporate it into the report then?
Yes, sir.
Our prior discussion, we decided to take all of that out.
Take what out?
Conclusion.
The conclusion.
No, the conclusion talked about the 6-5 vote that was, in my estimation, not any kind of consensus at all. I mean, I think those are two different things. I mean, what do we have besides getting input from the citizens of Baltimore County? What are they really responding to if we don't give them what we're thinking?
That makes sense.
They're responding to what the report says, and they will share what their thoughts on it, in terms of what they've been, some have shown up. This is another opportunity for public input, and people will say what they believe is right. They may come in and agree with Sheila, it should be 13. I mean, are we saying that we're going to conclude something and not be open to what they're saying? Otherwise, they don't need a public meeting. So I think we are going to be listening to what they said, at the hearings. I just wasn't sure why, at this point, since we had settled on the nature of the report, that we're going to have to do this before the report. If you meet and we can do it, that's one thing, but I just didn't think that it's absolutely necessary.
Anybody?
I just have to agree that, this compromise seemed to put together some, excuse me, something that, the council will have to do. Because I'm looking at the fact, just as it's been brought up, whether we decrease population or increase population, what will the council have to do? Are they gonna call us back? Not us, but some group. No, I think that it should be in the charter, this is what you should do. Per se, this happened, or that happened. So I just think the suggestion to put it in the charter is I really agree with it.
Okay, well, it seems to be that the question is whether we should act on this before the public hearings or not. I'm okay either way. And it seems like half don't want it, half are okay with it. So I'm not going to be a deciding vote.
So are we going to meet next week over Zoom?
If the point of meeting next week is to figure this out and decide on it, then I think we should. If not, then I don't think we need to meet.
I'm in favor of doing a Zoom next week.
What's that?
I'm in favor of having a Zoom meeting next week.
Will it give the staff enough time to get this report together?
Yeah. I mean, the original plan was to get this out within 7 days.
Okay, so can I get a motion to do such a thing?
I move that we have a Zoom meeting on the 7th, and at that time, we discuss this, and hopefully we'll have our 2 missing members for the meeting.
Can I add a friendly amendment to your motion?
Sure.
That we also review their draft report, their revised draft report?
Yes.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. All right, so staff, you have your marching orders for next week. Anybody have any other comments before we close tonight?
What time is the meeting going to be?
Which day?
5:30, same usual time?
Yeah, I mean,
Zoom?
yeah,
Or you want to do it after that? What? With WebEx, yes. You got to look. What time would you suggest,
I
Ms.?
will go with the majority, but usually when I have evening meetings over WebEx or Zoom, they don't start at 5:30. I mean, I'll go whatever the group wants.
6:30?
I'd rather have 5:30 here, but.
Oh, at 5:30, that's fine. I'll go with the
No, I mean,
ones.
here.
No, I mean,
Wait, it's gonna be-
no, I mean, it's,
I'm gonna be at my house.
you can be home. I mean,
It's gonna be
so
home, yeah.
6:30,
I won't be.
7? I'm okay either way.
Whatever time the group goes with.
my suggestion is give yourselves at least, the buffer of time. Because Zoom meetings do take a little bit more time than in person. Just, as a precaution.
I'm listed, expert, okay. What time you recommend?
I would say no later than 6:30. Preferably 6
Yeah, let's do it at 6.
On the 7th, right?
on the 7th.
And that's my birthday, so I expect songs.
So you shouldn't go for the, right?
It'll be virtual, so you'll see virtual balloons.
Cake and ice cream.
Right.
All right, so next week, 6 p.m. Okay?
That's good.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
The move.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Very glad I recorded.
Probably knew my
Amos and Loretta Harvey. Amos and Loretta Harvey.
So Adam, you might
Amos Harvey was in
have a
charge.
draft version that
Amos
incorporates
was in charge of
this compromise so that you're ready to go.
Amos Harvey.
Yeah, I think that's,
And when was in charge?
I think that's what I'm going to end up